Hello and welcome back to Dave's Movie Diary. Today I am returning to The Dude. Of course, I'm talking about the Big Lebowski from 1998, Coen Brothers, Jeff Bridges, iconic role, iconic movie for lots of people. And I've always been fascinated by films that seem to develop a life beyond the movie itself. This is definitely one of those films. It is a cult film. I've heard it discussed in near mythic terms by lots of people, either that do a lot of film commentary or that just are everyday people like me and talk about movies. For me, it's gone from being a well-received entry in the Coen Brothers stable into one of the biggest cult films of the last few decades. Seems to get on a lot of best-of lists, films that you've got to watch before you die, that sort of thing. And I reckon Jeff Bridges' Dude character has become, as well, a cultural icon for laid-back coolness and finding an alternative way to live your life. Like the quotes, the lifestyle, the bowling, his whole philosophy. It's become bigger than just the film. And I think a lot of people know the Dude character without necessarily knowing what the film's about or what happens in it. I saw it way back in the day. Obviously, it was a reasonably big deal when it came out. Following a couple of years on from Fargo, which really broke new ground for the Coen Brothers. Up until then, their films had been seen as quirky, sort of not minor, but not major league films either. And I think Fargo had made such a splash, rightly so, and got a lot of awards attention, and was just so fantastic that this film coming after it cemented that for most people. And then the Coen Brothers have never been away from us since then, and gone on to make a lot of more varied things too. If you think about No Country for Old Men and True Grit, films like that are more conventional storytelling in amongst all their other traditional Coen Brothers films. And when you watch Coen Brothers films, I always notice the characters, the absurd situations, and these guys have got the ability just to keep on creating unforgettable people. So yeah, a few things to talk about. What's it about? For those who haven't seen it, Jeffrey the Dude Lebowski. He refers to, this is Jeff Bridges' character, he refers to himself as the Dude, and there's variations on that, Dudism being one of them, but yeah, he doesn't respond to his name. All his friends call him the Dude. He's obviously a really laid-back guy living in LA, doesn't work. His main interests are bowling, drinking White Russians, and generally avoiding responsibility as much as he can. From the get-go, we're off into zany territory when two guys break into his apartment looking for money owed by his wife. There's a problem there because he's not married. I love the way that he tries to prove that, well, just step back a bit. They're like I said, they're trying to track down money that his wife allegedly owes, and he says, "Do I look like I'm married?" The evidence is that he leaves the toilet seat up, and look at this shitty apartment. Who would live in this? What woman lives here? I don't know if that'd stand up in a court of law, but it's a pretty good attempt under pressure. These guys eventually realize, yes, we have got the wrong Jeffrey Lebowski. Not a common name, I would have thought, but could be wrong. Before leaving, one of the guys marks out his territory, and I mean that in a literal sense, on the dude's rug. And the rug becomes a big part of the film because the dude wants compensation. He says that that rug really tied the room together. So trying to get this replacement rug leads him to meet the other Jeffrey Lebowski, who's a wealthy disabled businessman. And from there, like it's too difficult to try and spell out the whole plot. But I'll just say it's a bizarre kidnapping, ransom kind of film involving a whole host of interesting people, including Bunny Lebowski. I wonder if there's ever been an intellectual woman called Bunny. I think as soon as you get called Bunny, the connotations are there. There's what do we got in here? We've got pornographers, we've got nihilists. The nihilists also used to have a band, a trio, that put out an album called Autobahn, which obviously reminds me of a well-known German band. We've got some private detectives that are really bad at their job. Plenty of bowling. Bowling is one of the centerpieces of this film. Bowling competitions, lots of things happen. Not necessarily while bowling is occurring, but at the bar, drinking White Russians. And fair bit of mistaken identity in this film too. It's like I said, it's an incredibly complicated plot where the dude is basically just trying to get through the day. He really just seemingly wants to get back to his normal life where he's in control with his friends. So Joel Coen and Ethan Coen have always been fascinating filmmakers to me and many others because they move through genres so effortlessly, but they always introduce these really interesting characters and absurd situations. When you look down the list of some of their films, not all of them, but Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, Fargo, this, Oh Brother, We're Out There, No Country for Old Men, Burn After Reading, True Grit, Serious Man. There's a lot of films there that are in most people's top 5, top 10, top 20. It's hard to find people who don't like anything that the Coen brothers do. There's enough there to satisfy even the most hardened film goer. But for me, what I think they do brilliantly is take ridiculous situations and play them completely straight, like Fargo. Like it's brilliant. This is a funny thing. Nobody in a Coen brothers film thinks they're in a comedy. They kind of believe in their own reality, and very charming. Jeff Bridges is the dude. I suspect when this great actor passes away that this film will be mentioned up near the top. I've talked before about what an underrated actor I think he is. I think his 80s alone was really great, and then in the 90s it got even better. In the early 90s he made some fantastic things. He seemed able to reinvent himself again and again and still remain cool, and he brings that laid back vibe. So he was the perfect choice for the dude. And this character is completely passive, but somehow becomes the center of this whole world. He's not after power or money or revenge. Other people around him are, and he gets drawn into it. But he just wants his rug back and wants to get back to bowling. So, Bridges was the perfect choice to play this role. As is John Goodman as Walter Sobchak. John Goodman's like someone that the Coens go to repeatedly. Raising Arizona, Barton Fink, this, possibly some others, but definitely those three for sure. I love him when he gets angry. He he's usually a cheerful big guy. Um, I mean, I first saw him in Roseanne for years, and I felt um, straight away he had that big guy energy, jolly big guy. But he can get angry. He shows that in Barton Fink as well. When he does, it's incredible. He was also really good in the HBO drama Tremmy, that was about the New Orleans disaster. Um, he was in that with Steve Zahn amongst others, and he really, it really felt like he was from New Orleans. He's a great actor. I think he's underrated. Anyway, Walter Sobchak, Vietnam vet. He he has this ability to turn any situation into a crisis, and it's the first time for me that I've seen someone pull a gun in a bowling alley. That probably shows my naivety. It's probably something that occurs quite a bit, um, but I'm not sure if many weapons have been pulled over someone allegedly creeping over the line before they bowl. And yeah, John Goodman in this film goes from 0 to 100 in about 2 seconds. And you kind of get used to it after a while, and you're kind of expecting it. But it's one of the funnier things that happens in this film is, I reckon, is Goodman losing his cool, especially with Steve Buscemi. Poor old Steve Buscemi just doesn't. He doesn't get the chance to say hardly anything in this film before he gets shut down by John Goodman. But the highlights for me in this film are two of the supporting actors who more than hold their own, and for me really are the brightest sparks. Julianne Moore as Maud Lebowski, using an upper class British accent that she rocks. As always, she completely commits to this strange, artistic, eccentric character. The way we're introduced to her is fascinating. She's pulled along on this, I don't know what you want to call it, this hang gliding near contraption to spatter paint on a canvas. Comes down, strips off. What a way to meet this character. But that's Julianne Moore. She's always fearless in the role she chooses, and she doesn't hold anything back. I first saw her in Shortcuts, the Altman film, which I love. And anyone who's seen Shortcuts will know what I'm talking about when I say that Julianne Moore makes an unforgettable entrance in that film, and to her film career for most of us. And she just owns the moment, as she does here. What a trilogy of films she'd made. The year before this, she was in Boogie Nights, had one of the central roles in that masterpiece. Then makes this, and then goes on to Magnolia. Completely, Magnolia of the three is the most separate inner role. But I did find some. Well, no, that's a lazy thing to say. That they are three different roles, but they're all fearless. They're all brave, fearless performances, and she's done lots of other ones. There's a movie called Safe that came out in 1995 that is definitely worth checking out, and one that I plan to revisit in the near future. She's someone who isn't talked about enough for me. You tend to hear, it's the same with male actors too, but you tend to hear the same names trotted out when we talk about great actors. But for me, from the 90s on, you'd have to do well to convince me that anyone's been better than Julianne Moore in what she does for the craft, and finding an actor willing to fully disappear into, at times, quite uncomfortable material. But she makes this role comedic, obviously, but it's awesome. But um, she's matched. She's at least matched by John Turturro as Jesus Quintana. Uh, um, Turturro, sort of like a male version of Julianne Moore, I suppose, in a way, in that he does anything for the craft. Before today, watching this film, the last time I'd seen him was watching the finals of the NBA. Big New York Knicks fan, and he was there loud and proud with Spike Lee, who he's collaborated with a few times. Um, and again, a guy of the 90s. I think I said this in the Barton Fink pod, but I always forget how good this guy is, and then he shows up and he he brings manic energy. You look at his eyes and they're darting around, and he's this big, tall, um, gawky sort of guy, but he brings a lot of warmth too. He's got an unbelievable range, but he's one of the highlights of this film. This purple bowling outfit, playing this overtly sort of stereotypical Latino character. The dance he does after the strike. Look it up on YouTube if you can't be bothered watching this movie. But oh my god, blowing kisses down the lane. The routine he comes up with to polish the bowling ball is very very sensual and sexual, um, in a very funny way. The whole thing's just got to be seen to be believed. His whole vibe, but he also makes some very serious threats to Goodman and Bridges while they're sitting there in Buscemi. One last thing, I did notice the Harvey Keitel get up, that Turturro and the Coens have modelled on Keitel's character Sport from Taxi Driver. The rings on his hands, on his fingers, and that long pointed fingernail on his little finger, brings a slightly sinister edge to him. That's that Sport look from '76 in Taxi Driver. I did think Steve Buscemi was wasted in this film. I didn't really understand why they got him here for no real reason. There's no Buscemi moments for me, unless I missed something. The whole role is basically him being ignored by Walter and the dude. Maybe that's the joke. Maybe that's the joke, that that someone as individualistic and awesome as Buscemi, who was one of the major stars of Fargo, and just had such a incredible 90s, just with Fargo and Reservoir Dogs alone. I just thought I would have liked to have seen more of Buscemi, but I always say that. I love it when his demise is, he's given a surfer's farewell, and I can't think of anyone who's less likely to be a surfer than Steve Buscemi. Just looks completely unathletic. That chalk white skin, no surfer vibes to me. But yeah, that was quite amusing. Maybe that's why he's in the film. There's two other guys I want to talk about. Peter Stormare always brings his unique energy too. What a run he was on Fargo, then this, and then 8mm. If you haven't seen 8mm, he has an interesting role in that. Snuff porn auteur, maybe, is the best way to describe him. He's got a sinister look to him, for sure. You see him, his hitman role in Fargo. In this one, it's more a comic bad guy vibe that he's got going on. That's quite good. Again, I could have done with more of him, I think. And lastly, but not, yeah. Ben Gazzara as Jackie Treehorn. Uh, this guy always brings an element of underworld, sinister, uh, man's man. Um, don't mess with him. Definitely skirting the law. Um, I've always loved him since his work with John Cassavetes. He's part of the stable of people that Cassavetes made films with from the late '60s on through into the early '80s. He was in other things too, films like Saint Jack as well with Bogdanovich. Sadly, I think a lot of people, younger people, or maybe people that don't like John Cassavetes, only know him as the over the top bad guy in Roadhouse, um, and maybe this film too. I don't know. He's not in this one for long, but he's a big player in the porn industry. Interestingly enough, his discussion about video lowering the standards in pornography storytelling immediately reminded me of the conversations that Burt Reynolds and Philip Baker Hall have in Boogie Nights the year before. And yeah, there are some parallels between the two films, just in the whole LA setting, the laid back storytelling. Not too many, but just in those elements, maybe. But definitely the pornography um, elements as well. Um, so maybe that's a little bit of a homage to Boogie Nights. I don't know. Music, some really good music in this. I did latch onto the Creedence Clearwater Revival references. I love Creedence Clearwater Revival. Um, I did wonder though. I mean, they're an intensely American band, but they're always associated with people getting stoned. I noticed this when I was 14 or 15 reading Stephen King novels, and characters would often listen, or there'd be references to Creedence and people getting stoned. So that was my first. I'd never heard of Creedence until I was reading Stephen King novels in the mid '80s, and then I got into them in the '90s, and again, they're a band that doesn't get enough due attention. I think they're yeah, they're brilliant. I think it's logical that the dude would be into Creedence, but they almost become a cultural shorthand for that certain kind of laid back counterculture. You can get the image happening pretty quickly just by putting on some of their music. I'm always happy to hear some Santana in the background. Their fusion of rock and blues and Latin. I love it. I love a lot of Santana music. Probably again underappreciated by younger audiences today. They were reasonably well known in when I was growing up in the '80s, but I feel like they were much bigger in the '70s. They did have that revival in the late '90s with the Smooth track, and I know Carlos Santana got a lot of guests to appear on that album. It's really great. Love Santana. I did like the craft work. What do you want to call it? Parody, nods to. I just the autobahn, the three of them. They seem to be Germanic. There's a lot of mocking of these three guys, and their self-important artistic identity through their music. I don't mean Kraftwerk. I mean the nihilists in this film, Peter Stormare and Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. As a proud Australian, I'm always happy to see that guy popping up, and what a great character! What an everyman! He just pops up at beaches He comes out here in summer sometimes, just pops up at the beach, chats to people. Never mind the fact he was the bass player in one of the most iconic bands since the what early '90s when they really cracked the US market. I mean, their mid to late '80s work was even better, if I think when you go back and re-examine it. But anyway, getting off the track. I love Kraftwerk as well. Part of me was a little bit offended initially when I saw that they were maybe mocking Kraftwerk, but for me, yeah, Kraftwerk were pioneers. They weren't just these weird electronic novelty act that I think Devo gets chucked into that mix as well. But if you listen to Devo and Kraftwerk, there's a lot more going on. Some really cool lyrics, ironic lyrics, but just great music above all else. So I think they helped change the direction of modern music. I think they influenced punk to an extent, in a weird way, but along with reggae and lots of other, yeah, music is just as good and sometimes better than cinema. It's a different thing, right? But can't live without music. My favorite moments in this film was definitely love the opening confrontation. A great way to start a film with someone's head getting put into a toilet bowl. I love how the dude says when they're asking him where the money is, and he goes, "Oh, just dunk me again. I'll have another look down in the toilet bowl." Um, Great stuff. And I've talked about Jesus, the Totoro character. Everything he does in this film is worth watching on repeat. Um, I loved the Nixon bowling artwork in Lebowski's apartment. So cool to see that guy hitting the lanes. I enjoyed the cover of the Hotel California by Gypsy Kings, and then there was a pretty severe put down of Desperado by the dude a bit later in the film. So nearly paying homage to the Eagles and then putting them down. Make of that what you will. The Nihilists, whenever they appear, they're awesome. Um, Goodman's bowling alley meltdowns. Any Goodman meltdown in this film, love it. And like I said, the ash scattering when Bashimi dies. Good life lesson there. Before you scatter ash, always check the wind direction. Um, I mean, you can apply checking the wind direction to lots of things that you might be doing outside. Um, I'll leave that with you. You can work out what I'm talking about there. Um, I did want to, I guess, now get into some slightly controversial ideas about this film. I said at the top that this is a mythic film for a lot of people, and I understand that. Um, I've seen it now, I think probably 4 or 5 times. The first time I saw it, like I said, when it came out, I didn't see it at the cinema. I saw it pretty soon after that. I'm sure it was one of those films that everyone was talking about. Um, and getting rave reviews. It did feel like a breath of fresh air. It was, yeah, it just seemed new, vibrant. What I'm discovering though, and I'm a lot older now and maybe out of touch, definitely probably out of touch. I admire it now more than I love it, if that makes sense. I find that with each repeated viewing, I notice that the film's aware of itself. Not aware like HAL 9000 or Cyberdyne Systems, but just seems to be too knowing. It kind of realizes how quirky and funny or mythic it's going to be. I nearly felt like some of the characters are looking at the camera saying, "We know we're in this really cool film." I think the best things about the film for me are those little quirky things that I mentioned. Nixon bowling or the cover of Hotel California, whatever. But that and some of the performances, especially Turturro and Julianne Moore and John Goodman, still a brilliant collection of characters. But for me, it's not actually at the top of what the Coen brothers do. And so then I thought, well, what's my hierarchy of Coen brothers? And just from a quick look at what they've done, and I will say at the top that I haven't been able to revisit Miller's Crossing since I saw it once in the 90s. And I know there's a lot of love for that film. I've only seen the Hudsucker Proxy once as well, and I didn't think it was their best. I've only seen A Serious Man once, and I know some people think that that's right up at the top as well. So I'll give that another view. But for me, the top shelf of Coen brothers includes No Country for Old Men, Fargo, you can tell from the way I've talked about it in this pod. But I've got a lot of love and time for Burn After Reading as well. Now, just below those three, I have some films including Blood Simple, the first Coen brothers film and the first one that I saw. So that's always got a special place for me. Raising Arizona, I think that film still holds up. And then True Grit. I only saw it the once, but I thought it was very well done. I was going to say not a true Coen brothers film, not a typical Coen brothers film. And I really enjoyed Barton Fink recently when I rewatched it for the second time. Then I've got The Big Lebowski. So third tier, along with The Man Who Wasn't There and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I saw The Man Who Wasn't There recently, and it didn't resonate as much with me as it did the first time around. First time around, I thought it was really good. This time I appreciated Billy Bob. But I don't know it felt long to me. It just felt a bit lost. So you'll notice I haven't mentioned some other films that people really love the Coens for. And yeah, that's just because I don't even have them on the third tier. Just a personal opinion, meaningless except for me, really. But yeah, that's what I think. Date film, yes. I think if you like this film, most people really love this film. I still like this film. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's as momentous as it's made out to be. Well, it's not for me. But it's probably it is a great shared experience with someone. So if someone's into film and loves the Coens, for whatever reason they haven't seen it, or even if they have, they're memorable characters. There are some funny moments. There's lots of funny moments. There's lots happening, twists and turns, endless things. It's not a film full of long, slow takes and inner thoughts. It's not about anything. It's just following these characters around, and it's entertaining. It'll tell someone a lot about you and your taste, that you're signaling you like something slightly left of center, though I feel over time the Coens have become a bit more mainstream. I do think it's a hangover film. I think it works because of its relaxed chilledness. It's not overly demanding. Coens aren't asking you to solve anything here. They're just telling unusual stories with unforgettable, quirky characters. Obviously, I watched this alone. You can watch it alone, but it doesn't lend itself to that. It's not. I don't think that's the ideal setting. I think it's great to watch it with someone else. I probably would have enjoyed it more if I'd watched it with someone else. Unlike some other films I've been watching recently, this definitely isn't a solitary reflective film. It's really designed to be watched with someone else. So you finish it and you immediately start talking about favourite scenes and lines and quotable things and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what I think. That's The Big Lebowski. from 1998. Check it out if you can. I watched it here on SBS, the local streaming service. So there you go. As always, thanks for listening, and catch you next time.